2027 presidential bid, Atiku confirms he's preparing for what he describes as his last outing. He emphasizes that the stakes are higher and expresses a belief in the necessity of mentorship from the older generation to guide younger leaders. Coalition strategy. He is a key initiator of an ADC-led coalition designed to unite various political factions to challenge the APC. He states his willingness to step aside for a consensus candidate or any winner who emerges through a democratic process, including Peter Obi. Criticism of the incumbent. Atiku expresses deep disappointment in President Bola Ahmed Tinubu's administration, describing it as the worst he has seen in his lifetime, particularly regarding economic management.
Central figure in Nigerian politics for decades, and by the time the election comes around in 2027, you'll be 80. Respectfully, I mean, this may be your last realistic shot at the presidency. Does that make the stakes higher for you this time?
Certainly yes, because the stakes are higher because I believe that will be my last outing. And
so that's incontrovertibly
that's incontrovertible.
Fact.
That
Okay.
Is.
Right. So beyond the fact that you have said conclusively that that'll be your last outing, why should Nigerians take that gamble on you now? Why should they believe that you represent the future and not the past?
I represent both the past and the future. Simply because we have seen various levels of leadership in the country, both young and old, and we're experiencing them. And I still believe that our expectations of the young leadership is below what we thought. And we believe, I personally believe, they require experience and they require tutelage from the older generation.
Yeah, but you don't have to be in power to give them that tutelage.
Sometimes you need to be.
I mean, you could be doing it now.
Yeah, sometimes you need to be, because what I was able to learn from President Obasanjo through his experience, I couldn't have learned it outside.
Right. But critics say you represent the same political establishment Nigerians are increasingly frustrated with. I mean, why should they trust you to deliver something different?
But look at it. Look at, the political experience. It's been a mixed one. We have had so many young governors in a number of states who have failed woefully, when it comes to governance, Charles. And I believe those type of people still require tutelage, still require to learn from experience. Believe me, I don't think I could have learned, if I were a president, what I have learned, under being vice president to president, because he came with tremendous experience from a military head of state and now to a civilian president. There was a lot I learned.
But I wonder if the real challenge for you, Mr. Vice President, is not just defeating the incumbent, Bola Ahmed Tinubu, but convincing Nigerians that you are not more of the same. I mean, I know I'm banging on a bit about that, but yeah. Why should they take the risk of choosing you now after so many previous attempts?
Well, there is a clear and stark difference. Take the cases of the state governors in a number of states being headed by relatively young people and failing woefully simply because at the apex they did not have a capable and experienced president to guide them and to, of course, give them the benefit of his experience. And that's why we have been having a number of very, very woeful leadership at a number of states, because they are being headed by inexperienced young men. Young men also require experience. to be able to succeed.
But is it an individual thing or a systemic thing?
I think, to me, I will describe it as a systematic issue, because we have had more failures in states than we even had at the federal level.
Because I'm wondering whether you're saying that the system only became broken when you were no longer in power.
Not necessarily, but when we did not have capable presidents with experience at the helm of affairs.
And when was that? I mean, everybody, to be fair, recognizes the time that you and Obasanjo were in office as a sort of golden era.
That's right.
After sort of the return to democracy. But what other time after that are you talking about?
For instance, let's take the era of after Umaru Yar'Adua, who started very well and was succeeded by Jonathan Goodluck. I know Jonathan Goodluck very well, a decent young man, but also inexperienced. That, I believe, attributed, to his failure to manage affairs of the country, particularly when he was faced with challenges. So these are the type of things that we, in fact, what I would like to see is real leadership training of our upcoming and young generation politicians. I wish I could introduce a leadership training.
Well, you could.
Yeah.
I mean, you own a university. I mean, you could start a leadership institute.
Yes. We need it. We need it in this country.
But it hasn't occurred to you all this time that that's something you ought to do?
Well, the university is an independent body.
Right.
It's a growing institution. It's a little over 20 years now. And of course, not that it hasn't produced very, very exceptional products. I have met their products all over the world, and I was astonished to see them. But then, as you know, universities are a developing institutions, so maybe in due course they should be able to do that.
Yeah, obviously you can start a leadership institute independent of the university. But you are now aligned with the African Democratic Congress, or ADC, at a time when the party is facing legal battles as well as internal disputes. Do you believe that your presence on the ADC is building a viable platform, or are you joining a coalition that's already under terrible strain?
Charles, I must be frank with you. I am one of the initiators of this coalition, or perhaps the leading, initiator of the coalition, because I remember when the PDP lost the last election, I addressed the party. I said, I don't see a future for PDP unless there is a coalition, or a broad-based coalition or alliance. And the PDP leadership disagreed with me at that point in time.
What made you say that?
I said it because I studied, the political history of Nigeria, and I saw how alliances worked in the First Republic, in the Second Republic. I mean, so it is not difficult for one to, to predict or to explain, to what I will say, students of, because I consider those young politicians as future leaders of Nigeria. So it's my responsibility to point out to them. And I pointed out to them that the only future for PDP is in broad coalition. And they disagreed with me. And the reason why they disagreed with me was simple. Simply because they didn't want to see my face, not what I was proposing. And now they have found themselves in the same position.
Yeah, but what I'm wondering is, what was it that made you say that the future of the PDP was only in coalition, having yourself been a presidential candidate of the party?
I studied the political history of Nigeria.
No, I know, but that's a broad thing. I'm talking about specifically, what is it? What did you see in the PDP that there was a warning sign for you?
Because there was a decline in the popularity of PDP, and the states they were winning. So there was a decline. There was no way, they could have won on their own without, a coalition.
Was there the nettlesome factor of Nyesom Wike there?
Well, I mean, in fact, more or less it was like a kind of gang up.
Gang up against you?
Possibly,
Against the party?
Possibly against the party or based on their individual ambitions.
Right. Now, you're in the ADC coalition, as we said. I mean, is the coalition driven by a shared vision? And I'm coming off the back of what you just said about what happened in the PDP. And you've been in several political parties, including the APC. So you've got a very good sense of how parties come together and what makes them fall apart.
Yeah.
Is this coalition of the ADC driven by a shared vision or simply a shared determination to remove Bola Ahmed Tinubu?
Let me say both, because Bola has been a very bad president, to be honest with you.
How so?
I mean, because I didn't expect that from him, you know, in the way he governs the country, whether economically or otherwise. It's a disappointment.
Right. Well, I'm going to return to that issue in a minute because that's obviously important. But if the ADC is about vision, which you suggest that it is, can you clearly state what unites you beyond opposing the incumbent?
Well, a number of things unite us. For instance, the issue of deepening our democratic institutions and the issue of separation of powers under the Constitution. We feel very, very concerned about that. We have seen how virtually, you know, a presidency has almost turned the various institutions that are supposed to be checks and balances, you know, under one roof, which is quite dangerous.
Right. Okay, you've run for president now, as we said, multiple times. Some have called you a perennial contender. I'm sure you've heard that yourself a number of times. And you are aiming to run again in 2027. What, if anything, makes this attempt different from the others?
Different in what way, Charles?
Well, that's why I'm asking you that question. What makes it different from the other times that you've run?
What makes it different from the other times is that you have a more broader coalition now. You have elements from APC, from PDP, from NMPP, from Labour. That makes it a much broader, you know, coalition than what even happened in the past before. Yeah.
But for you personally?
For me personally, I see a lot of future because within the broad coalition, you see people of my generation, you see people below my own generation, and, you know, down the line. So you can see clear, you know, succession, you know, pattern, imagine. Yes.
Wasn't that the same thing that happened in what was the APC coalition?
Not necessarily, not necessarily. I didn't see it in the APC coalition. You know, I left the APC quite early. Once I realized that they are going the wrong way, I left.
Some would say once you realize that your political ambition wouldn't be achieved.
Not about that. It wasn't about the personal ambition at all. No, absolutely not.
So what was it about?
Quite a number of things. I mean, of course, you are dragging me to, you know, start going into the administration of late President Buhari, and I wouldn't want to do that because he's late.
Right. Okay, understood. Let's return to the ADC, which is the matter of the moment. If a consensus candidate emerges within the ADC coalition, would you step aside in the interest of unity?
No, it's not the issue of stepping aside, but would I support?
Right.
I think what would I say in the coalition is that we will the first option will be to work out a consensus. If that doesn't, of course, emerge, then we go for direct president. I mean, I will support anybody who emerges.
Right. So either a consensus candidate, and that's the first option.
Yes, that's
Right.
the first option as far as the party is concerned. We will aim at consensus. If we don't get it, then we go for elections.
Right. That sounds like something that'll be terribly disputatious.
I don't expect we will get to that level because we are dealing with really mature politicians and experienced politicians as well.
But you're also dealing with people with huge political ambitions.
Ambition, well, that's a different thing altogether. But we have all agreed that this is the way to save democracy in this country.
You now, of course, share that political space with figures like Peter Obi, Rabiu Kwankwaso, Rotimi Amechi, Nasir El-Rufai, Aminu Tambuwal, and a host of others. I mean, some would say that this is not a partnership, this is a rivalry waiting to happen. Because if you ask many Nigerians, their concern is that this might collapse under the weight of competing ambitions.
No. Charles, clearly you can see that there is a generational progression there. So, I mean, if people of my generation don't get it, the people who may get it next may be the next generation. I mean, clearly you can see a generational structure there, and it's deliberate.
Right. If it comes down to one ticket, which ultimately it'll come down to, will you step aside for somebody
There
like...
is no question of stepping aside.
What I'm asking, I want to ask you a direct question now. If it comes down to that single ticket, will you step aside for Peter Obi, for example, if he's more popular? Yes or no?
I will step aside for any winner.
Right.
Yeah.
Including Peter Obi.
Of course, if he is a contender, why not?
I mean, he was your vice presidential running mate. Would that make it a bit more difficult for you to accept him coming?
Why? What is difficult there is
well, I don't know.
mean,
that's why I'm
politics
asking.
is either you go through democracy or you go through consensus. So
Right.
what is there if he emerges through, consensus or he emerges through electoral process?
Right. Okay. Well, let me talk about something else, which is the political power of the North, which everybody recognizes is considerable. I mean, it's almost the determining factor in any election in Nigeria. Your political strength has often been tied to the North, but also, I mean, you're often seen as somebody who has a widespread across Nigeria, particularly the Southeast, South, and so on. But today, the North appears more fragmented than ever. Do you agree with that assessment?
No, I think I would rather say the North appears to be more united now than fragmented.
Well, there seem to be multiple power blocks, competing loyalties. I mean, the North Central region is asserting more of an independence away from the rest of the North, so it's no longer monolithic.
The North Central has always asserted a more independence because it used to be the Middle Belt. So from the First Republic, it has been, the position of the North Central. It has always been a middle belt, but in the broader political sense, it has always been part of the North.
Do you genuinely have the backing of the North? Can it still unite behind you, or has that political base shifted beyond your control?
No. The North still remains my major political base, because I won more northern states than any other states. I won only 2 in the Southwest. I don't think I won any in the Southeast and the South.
Right. And you're confident that that remains the same even today?
Yes, I am.
Right. If the North doesn't monolithically rally behind you as their candidate, does that fundamentally weaken your path to the presidency?
In fact, politically, the North appears much more united now than ever.
No, but what I'm saying is that if it doesn't monolithically, in other words, if they don't all come together and rally behind you, how much does that weaken your path to the presidency?
The majority of the North will always come together.
And you're the person to bring them together.
That's right.
Why?
Sure.
What would be the basis for it?
Because that is my political base.
Yeah, but
Just
I mean,
like
a lot of other people would argue that it's their
just
political.
like the South is the political base of Peter Obi,
Right.
And South is the political base of Amechi. Yes.
The reason I say that is that you have so many different elements today. I mean, in that northern sort of equation, it's not like it's not like under Buhari, for example, where you had this massive vote that was constantly going to him.
Okay, can you tell me among the current leaders in the North who has more votes than I have?
Well, it depends on who has been running. I mean, you talked about different tiers of...
I mean, you are talking of figures like Tambuwal, you are talking like figures like Kwankwaso and others, and Mayor Ruvais, and also the emerging political, figures. None of them has got that northern bloc vote as much as I have got.
But they also, people like Kwankwaso have the northern strategic vote, don't they?
Kano.
Yes, that's strategic.
Yeah. We concede that to him.
Right.
Yeah. That's why he's a leader in the coalition.
But you don't think that the absence of such a vote would affect you fundamentally?
But, the absence of it may affect, but even his own case, you can see how Kano is now split between himself and his former governor. So there is even a split in that.
Let's turn to the issue of zoning. There is a strong argument rooted in Nigeria's informal power rotation that after a northern presidency, it is now the turn of the South to lead. So why are you seeking to run in 2027? Are you going against that principle, or do you believe zoning no longer matters?
No, I think it is an error or a mistake to say that there is an agreement on issue of zoning in Nigeria. Let me tell you, the only political party that has zoning provision in its constitution is the PDP. All the rest don't have. So if anything, all the other political parties are borrowing or learning from PDP's zoning formula.
But you agreed with that zoning formula. I mean, you were the vice president.
Yes,
under
I agree.
the PDP.
Yeah, I agree with the zoning formula.
So why do you disagree
PDP.
with it now?
Wait a moment.
Yeah.
But if you are talking about zoning formula in the PDP, and it is North-South, the South has governed for 18 years and the North 10. So who is in a deficit, if you want to be fair?
Yeah, but is that, I mean,
you apply it globally. Apply it globally. I'm telling you, the only party that has zoning in its constitution entrenched is the PDP. The rest don't have.
Right, but the principle, though, of zoning, do you agree with it?
I agree with the principle. In fact, I will even go further. Let me tell you what happened in the 2004, Constitutional Conference of Abacha. There was an argument between the late Dr. Alex Ekweme and myself in particular representing the late Shehu Yaradua group. Dr. Alex Ekweme proposed a provision in the Constitution for a rotational presidency. And I was leading the Yaradua group and I opposed it. And because we control about 60 to 70% of the delegates, late Dr. Ekweme's amendment was not through. Now, in hindsight, when I attended the funeral of late Dr. Ekweme, I admitted that I made a mistake. I should have supported Dr. Ekweme's amendment, and the presidency would have rotated to all the zones in the country. And I think that is the most equitable provision that could be, included in the Constitution.
Right. Is that something that you would push for if you became president?
Definitely, yes. Even if it is the only amendment
Right.
I can make, I will move towards that.
But that push will come only if you become president, because right at this point you're making an argument about the number of years the North has had and the number of years the South has had, and some would say that that is for your own political convenience.
Not my own political convenience, but for the political stability of the country. Because if that amendment, if that provision were there, you would not be having all these arguments now about zoning or no zoning, who is cheated and who is not cheated, and so on and so forth, because every zone would have had the opportunity to produce a president.
Yes, but that's
you will know that even if you don't produce a president now, you will produce a president in the future.
But are you prepared to deal with the possible backlash that would come from people in this country if they perceive that you're abandoning that zoning, which appears to be the way they see it?
It is not abandoning zoning, rather it is entrenching zoning.
Well, the way they see it.
Because right now, zoning is not in Nigeria's constitution. It's not. And
no, I understand that, but what I'm saying is that you running is the greatest, if you like, testament to your philosophy around zoning, because it suggests that, a lot of people would say that it's the turn of the South. I mean, that's why, a southerner ran. That's why people like PDP have zoned it to the South and so on. I mean,
Charles, I'm telling you, most of these arguments are, more, self-centered. I'm giving you the most rational argument. There is no party that has zoning in its constitution. So if you don't have zoning in your constitution, why are you pushing for it?
Yeah, but it doesn't have to be in the constitution.
It has to.
There has to be a principle.
For you, it has to. For a multi-ethnic and multi-religious country like Nigeria, it has to.
But if there is a consensus within your party, for example, to say that in the interest of propriety, in the interest of justice, which you have talked about, that perhaps it is time for, they should let the South finish the 2 terms and it'll return to the North in 2031.
Then you cannot balance the deficit. Already the North is behind by 8 years. So where is the fairness there? Where is the balance there?
Yeah, but is there an element of your own political, because you have said that after 2027 you're not going to run